All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we look at the 49er draft needs and draft priorities after going through Warren Sharp's Niner draft preview, which is outstanding. First, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. Call my friend Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264. And we're brought to you by LearnKey. That's right. LearnKey is sponsoring this video. This video is sponsored by LearnKey Upskill Academy, an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less. Whether you're interested in IT or cybersecurity, it could be marketing or any other field, they offer over 30 different certification programs to help you take that next step in your professional career. They've been in business for 37 years. They've helped over 200,000 students. They place over 100 students every month in well-paying jobs. LearnKey Upskill Academy, and check out the links to all of our sponsors in the description below. All right, let's talk a little bit about the upcoming NFL draft for the 49ers. The draft is approaching. I think most people expect the Niners to rebuild the trenches. But, one of the things that is interesting is it's what are the Niners' needs and what do they view their needs as? Because sometimes their needs and what they view their needs as are not one and the same. Give an example what I'm talking about. General Manager John Lynch and head coach Kyle Shanahan recently kind of downplayed the 49ers' need for offensive line reinforcements during the NFL's combine. In our owners' meetings, I should say, Lynch said, hey, we like our right tackle. We like our center. Left guard, we have some candidates in-house right now. We'll try to improve our offensive line through the draft, but there are a lot of good pieces there already. So there you go. Shanahan added that he felt the entire offensive line has played at a pretty high level. They're coming off a 6-win season. And Trent Williams is their one Hall of Famer on the offensive line. He's turning 37 before the season begins. They also lost Aaron Banks in free agency. Obviously, the defensive line needs to be upgraded for sure. So the Niners need help in the trenches. There was an NFL scout that weighed in an article recently in ESPN's article by Matt Miller. And the quote was from the anonymous scout, "This should be an all trenches draft if Shanahan can resist picking skill players." So the Niners have 11 picks. This anonymous scout says they should devote almost all of their picks to reinforcing the O-line and the D-line. And but Shanahan's potential desire for offensive playmakers could complicate that approach. Chris Forster said last year, he said, "This is my personal opinion if they ask me. Invest in guys that touch the ball. Guys that can touch the ball and score touchdowns. That guy that touches the ball, it makes a huge difference in the game." So, and basically Forster saying that over getting him more help on the offensive line. So, there's no question. The Niners have 11 selections. They need to hit in this draft in a big way. Because they need as many inexpensive players on their roster as possible, and that's what the draft provides. Inexpensive players. So let's go through. Warren Sharp did a phenomenal breakdown of the 49ers today. And he basically goes position by position and goes through the Niners draft. And we're gonna kind of summarize it for you and go through some of the things that he wrote and talked about today. Now, he starts off by saying, hey, for those of you who are like Brock Purdy's the problem, you don't know jack. Brock Purdy's third NFL season, he was third in the NFL in yards per attempt. He was fourth in the NFL in success rate. He was fifth in the NFL in EPA per attempt. That was this year, his down year. And this was despite having the second most injured offense in the entire NFL. And despite just getting 57 total snaps with CMC, Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle all on the field together. So, Basically he never had a full complement. He had a super injured offense, and yet he was third in yards per attempt, fourth in success rate, and fifth in EPA per attempt. So there's no question that the Niners have a bunch of needs. And I would say their needs are defensive line, as far as D tackle, edge rusher, offensive line. And then after that, I think they need linebackers. I think they need a couple linebackers. I think they need a couple corners. I think they need a receiver. I definitely think they need another running back. They could use another tight end. But the real big areas where they have to find some help, or they're not going to be very good this year, is the defensive tackle position, the defensive end position, and they need some more reinforcements for the offensive line. So what are the Niners, what are they armed with? They have 11 picks, including the 11th pick overall. They have 1 1, 1 2, 2 3s, 2 4s, 2 5s, and 3 7s. So that's how it pens out. 11, 43, 75, 100, 113, 138, 147, 160, 227, 249, and 252. That's where the Niners pick in the draft this year. Okay. The Niners have, according to Sharp's football draft value, the 6th most draft capital of any team in pro football. So, in fact, the Niners draft value, according to Warren Sharp, is 25% higher than the league average. So the Niners also have the benefit, because they've had such a bad 2024 season, that they will have the easiest NFL strength of schedule for the season that lies ahead. The Niners have the easiest strength of schedule in the whole league. So let's just start right there, and we'll just roll down the roster top to bottom. We'll start at quarterback. There's no question. Brock Purdy regressed last year. No doubt about that. He regressed. How much of it was his fault is the debate. He still had a really strong season. He ended his third season with 8.5 yards per pass attempt, third best in the NFL, fifth in EPA per dropback at 0.17, fourth in success rate. And this happened in a season in which the Niners ran 57 total plays, where they had Purdy, CMC, Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle all on the field together. 57 plays all year. So, and that's not even mentioning the offensive line injuries. Obviously, Trent Williams missed a lot of time. So, despite the fact, he did produce without an elite supporting cast. He did have a career high 2.6% interception rate, which was not good, 26th in the league. He completed a career low completion percentage of 65.9% of his passes last year, 17th in the league. So, he only 31.4% of Purdy's throws into the end zone resulted in a touchdown. That number was 66.7 in 2022 and 57.1 in 2023. So there's no question not having CMC was a huge factor. And we all knew it would be. Without CMC for nearly the entire season, the defenses played more man-to-man against the Niners than ever before. Only 49% of Purdy's dropbacks came with the middle of the field closed. So single high safety sitting there, in other words. So that only happened 49% of the time on the year. So there was a lot more man. So, I mean, and as far as where did those numbers sit in the first 2 years? 59.9% and 60.5% in his first 2 years in the league. And despite that, Purdy was still one of the best downfield passers in the league. He completed a league-high 57.9% of his passes on throws of 10 or more yards down the field. The league average was 48.5, and Brock was at 57.9%. So, as we all know, Niners trying to hammer out a deal with Purdy. He's in the final year of his rookie contract. He's set to get a nice, lucrative extension. And this year, he's going to have Mac Jones behind him. They brought in Mac Jones. Jones made 7 starts with the Jaguars last year. He completed 65% of his passes, 8 touchdowns, 8 picks. His 80.5 QB rating was ahead of only Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. So he wasn't very good. And he had a 16% inaccurate throw rate, which was ahead of only Richardson in the NFL. So if you look at the quarterback spot and you say, well, what do the Niners need? They've got Purdy. He's their starter. They've got Mac Jones, and they've got Tanner Mordecai. So I would say the quarterback need in the draft is a day 3 guy, or most likely an undrafted free agent prospect, somebody who potentially can come in and compete with Tanner Mordecai for that third job, and maybe be on the practice squad if he loses out to Tanner Mordecai, or maybe be on the practice squad if he beats out Tanner Mordecai. So who's on this list? Who are the options? Well, I like Riley Leonard, but he's probably going to cost you a 5th or 6th round pick, and that's probably too early for the 49ers to invest in a quarterback. The undrafted group, I mean, it's hard to say who's going to be undrafted, but Brady Cook, very athletic. Taylor Elgersma, who played 12-man football up in Canada, very intriguing skill set. But the guy that I think I would lean towards if I was adding one quarterback in this class, it would be Peyton Thorne from Auburn, who, fast, mobile, decent arm, son of a coach, dad played football, grandfather played football. Football's important to him. He's really athletic. He can move. Eugene Asante said the Auburn players called him Vanilla Vic, which made me laugh. Of course, a reference to Michael Vick being a very mobile quarterback. So Peyton Thorne, if I could add one quarterback in the draft process, it would probably be after the draft, and most likely it would be Peyton Thorne. All right, let's move on to running back. All right, 2024, total lost year for CMC. He only appeared in 4 games. He played a career low 167 offensive snaps. He missed the first 8 weeks of the year with an Achilles. He missed the final 5 games with a PCL injury. It was the 3rd time in his career, by the way, that he missed double-digit games. So, once again, Todd Husak and I debated this when he came out. I said, I love CMC. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think I don't believe in his durability. And sure enough, he's had 3 times in his career he's missed double-digit games. He's going to turn 29 in June. He's got 3 years remaining on his current contract, which they just extended. Even without him, even with him missing a ton of time last year, Niner running backs combined for 4.9 yards per carry. So the Niners, even with CMC missing a ton of time, averaged almost 5 yards a carry as an offense. So they ran the ball effectively. The efficiency, though, wasn't great. They were 16th in EPA per rush. They were 15th in success rate. And then they moved Jordan Mason to the Vikings in the offseason. They traded him. So they're obviously like Isaac Guerendo. They drafted Guerendo last year in the 4th round, 129th pick. And he had 99 touches on the rookie year for 572 yards, 5.8 a carry, which was a great number. 4 touchdowns. And, he got his first extended NFL workload, but he also had issues staying on the field. This guy had a foot injury. He had a hamstring injury. He had an MCL injury all over the final month of the season. So how much can you really rely on a guy that doesn't have much running back instincts? He's big and fast, but he gets hurt a lot. And he fumbles. And he doesn't look like a running back. So he's in a good spot, but I don't think the Niners are going to lean on him. I mean, nor should they. That would be really negligent if they just said, we got Guerendo. We don't need a running back. They're going to draft a running back. You can almost guarantee they're going to draft a running back. Kyle Shanahan has drafted a running back in 3 of the past 4 drafts. They almost always draft a running back. So what do they need at running back? I think they need 2 running backs. It's a great draft for running backs. I think they need a future starter, and they need that guy probably in the 3rd round, maybe the 2nd round. Maybe they'll hold off to the mid-rounds. I do love some mid-round options. R.J. Harvey from Central Florida, Kyle Monangai from Rutgers, Taj Brooks from Texas Tech. I think all would be awesome. They also need a finisher. They need a running back they can finish with. Elijah Mitchell, he never fumbled, could block, 4.3 speed. He left in free agency to go to Kansas City. They need 2 backs. They need a future starter in case CMC again is hurt, because they only have Guerendo, Patrick Taylor, Izzy Abanaconda, and Kyle Juszczyk. There's no Mason anymore. So you got to have a future starter, and I think you got to have another back who's a finisher. I think they need 2 running backs in this incredibly deep running back draft. They don't have to draft 2, but they got to get 2. So that means they could sign one after the draft. All right, let's move on to wide receiver. So I think running back definitely a need. You definitely need to invest a couple picks in a running back. Wide receiver is interesting. It's, they went first round wide receiver last year with Ricky Pearsall, but the depth chart right now is Brandon Ayuk when he's healthy at the top, then Juwan Jennings, then Ricky Pearsall, then Demarcus Robinson. The Niners need a polished wide receiver who can run, who can contribute right away. I think that's what they could really use, a speedster who could take the top off, because they also have Isaiah Hodgins, Trent Taylor, Tariq Owens. They also have Jacob Cowing. And they were forced to go into the depth chart last year. Ayuk, Debo, Jennings, and Pearsall all missed multiple games with injuries. Jennings winded up leading the wide receiver core in routes run, targets, catches with 77, yards with 975, and touchdowns with 6. He averaged 2.29 yards per route, which was 15th among NFL wide receivers. He had a 31.7% of the team's targets when he was on the field. He accounted for almost 32% of the Niners' total targets. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year as well. So, Pearsall had a crazy rookie year where he suffered a gunshot wound being robbed in downtown San Francisco at the beginning of the year. Then he had a hamstring injury, went on the PUP list, missed the first 6 games. Then when he finally got on the field, he caught 17 passes over the first 9 games of his career. Week 17, he caught 8 balls for 141 yards and a touchdown against the Lions. Week 18, he grabbed 6 balls for 69 yards and a touchdown against the Cardinals, with Josh Dobbs throwing him the ball. So Jennings and Pearsall on paper are going to be asked to lead this group, and that's problematic because that's probably not good enough. I mean, not good enough to contend for a Super Bowl. The Niners traded Debo in the offseason. Ayuk's coming off an ACL, MCL, meniscus injury. He had his surgery November the 11th, so he's going to be right at about the 10-month from surgery mark when the season kicks off. So I would imagine he's going to be gone for at least the first half of the year. He's probably going to need a full year. I mean, to be completely honest, they should probably give him a redshirt year. But I would say expect him in mid to late November. People saying he's going to be there for week 1. That would be miraculous. Now, the Niners did add Demarcus Robinson. They did add Isaiah Hodgins to the receiver room. Both those guys are decent veteran receivers. Robinson can make some more plays down the field, though he's not a burner. He runs 4.59, 4.61 in that range. Hodgins is even slower, but he's bigger. He's a good possession receiver. They need another receiver. They need a dynamic receiver who can run routes, who's pretty polished, and can step in and contribute. Who is that receiver? It's hard to say. I mean, do they go for that receiver early? Emeka Egbuka is probably the most polished of the receivers, ready to contribute right away. Luther Burden, I think, is probably the best receiver. He's got lots of speed and get deep. Trey Harris from Ole Miss is interesting. We mentioned before they like Alec Ayamanor from Stanford. Jack Betch from TCU would be a really good option as well. Good route runner. The 2 guys that are maybe the 2 or 3 guys that I really like are probably around the 3rd, 4th round. Savion Williams from TCU, who's a lot like Debo. He's tall. He's 6'4", 225, which is unlike Debo, but his game is very similar to Debo. He was a Wildcat quarterback. He can run with the ball. He was a high school quarterback. He's savage. I mean, he runs 4.48. He's big. He's powerful. Savion Williams and Jalen Royals. Royals from Utah State reminds me a lot of Debo as well. 5'11", 210, very strong, very polished. I kind of like Ty Felton, who's a little thinner from Maryland, but has 4.3 speed. There's Dante Thornton. There's Kyle Williams. There's Ricky White III, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Antoine Wells, Nick Nash, who was at the local pro day. And then there's day 3 guys, Zachary Franklin, Elijah Badger, Daquan Felton, Andrew Armstrong, Jordan Watkins I really kind of like a lot. Rock Taylor from Memphis, the Niners showed some interest in. So there's some guys. There's some interesting guys there for sure on this list. And then of course there's also, a few, these are the outside receivers. There's also slot receivers. I'm a big fan of Tez. I'm a big fan of Jalen Knoll. Jamal Pritchett had a really good year. Mario Williams for Tulane is a good slot receiver. I was just talking before, about Giles Jackson from UW, who showed up at the local pro day and lit it up. Looked great. Looked absolutely great. He's a nice little slot receiver. So they definitely need a receiver. They definitely need if they're gonna have somebody who's gonna contribute right away as a receiver, that guy's got to have a little polish. Rookie receivers don't really contribute right away in the NFL, so it's asking quite a bit to ask a rookie receiver to step in. All right, but they definitely need a receiver. They need a receiver. Got to come away with a receiver in this draft. Let's move to tight end. I think the tight end need, since they have George Kittle and they signed Luke Farrell, and you still have Jake Tongas, Braden Willis, and Mason Pline, I think they need a future starter at tight end who could be found potentially on day 3 or undrafted. The 3 guys I like the most are Jalen Conyers from Texas Tech, Ben Urasek from Georgia, started at Stanford, and I kind of like Rivaldo Fairweather from Auburn. Really long arms, didn't play a lot of high school football, kind of late to football, but really talented, really athletic. Those 3 tight ends. I mean, there's a bunch of other ones. I love Mitchell Evans, and there's a whole handful of guys. Rondé Gadsden is really intriguing. Obviously, the Penn State kid at the top is elite. Colston Loveland is elite. There's some really good players at tight end in this draft. But Conyers, Urasek, and Fairweather would be the guys I would probably, zero in on. No way I'm using a day 1 or day 2 pick on a tight end unless I'm taking the Penn State kid in the first round. I could do that. I could see the Niners potentially doing that. If not, I think it's a day 3 need, and I don't think it's a gotta-have-it situation because you did sign Luke Farrell. Maybe Michael Mayer could, who's Raiders tight end could be traded. I could see the Niners having interest in trading for Michael Mayer. Don't discount that angle at this position. So, I mean, Kittle was as great as ever this last year. He caught 78 balls for over 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. He played 15 games. He led all tight ends with 2.65 yards per route run. Since entering the league in 2017, he's led all tight ends in that category at 2.37 yards per route run. He was a force after the catch, 6.7 yards after the catch. That was 4th among tight ends. He's just a great player. He's a great player. He's probably headed to Canton. He was dominant again in the run game. The key is, can they find an all-around player that's a good enough blocker, not just a receiving threat, to allow Kittle to get out in the pattern? And maybe Luke Farrell's the answer there. Kittle was 2nd among all tight ends in the run blocking grade, according to PFF. Though he does turn 32 in October, and he's in the final year of his current contract. So the Niners added blocking tight end Luke Farrell in free agency. They let Eric Saubert walk away in free agency. Farrell, by the way, blocked on 74% of his snaps last year in Jacksonville. So he is very much let's get a blocker and get Kittle out in the pattern. All right, let's move to the offensive line. So the tight end spot's a need, but it's not a primary need because of the signing of Farrell. Let's jump to something that is a primary need, and that's the offensive line. You got at left tackle, you got Trent Williams, but he ended the season ranking 7th in overall grade among tackles, according to PFF, but he missed a career high 7 games. And the Niners felt his absence badly, especially in the run game. The Niners running backs had a 34.6 success rate and 1.4 yards per contact on their runs with Williams off the field. With him on the field, they posted a 39.3% success rate, so 5% better, with a 1.92 yards before contact per rush, which is quite a bit better than 1.4. So Trent Williams is the guy, and he makes the whole thing go. But he's going to turn 37 in July, and he's only got 2 years remaining on his current contract. Nobody knows how long he's going to play. And then you look at the rest of the line. I mean, you got Trent at left tackle. Your backup, you've got Colt McKivitz at right tackle. You don't really have a backup tackle. You have Jalen McKenzie, Austin Pleasant, Sebastian Gutierrez, and Isaac Alarcon. At left guard, you have Ben Barch stepping in for Aaron Banks. Spencer Burford's never been able to do it. Zach Johnson, just a guy. At center, you have Jake Brendel, Matt Hennessy, and Drake Nugent. They like Brendel for whatever reason. I kind of like Nugent. At right guard, you got a good young piece in Dominic Pooney. You got Zakel backing him up. And at right tackle, you got McKivitz. Um, so, you look at the Niners. I mean, Colton McKivitz is in the final season of his current contract. He allowed a 5.6 pressure rate this last year, 49th among offensive tackles. So the Niners have stated that they like Colton McKivitz, and yet he is 49th among offensive tackles last year in pressure rate allowed. Then they lost Jalen Moore to Kansas City in free agency. He was the guy who filled in for Williams at left tackle when he was out. They lost Aaron Banks to Green Bay. He led the team in snaps played at left guard. So now you got Barch and Zakel and Burford trying to compete for that left guard spot. But that, I would say, is wide open for a rookie, a quality rookie to step in. Zakel was the best of the group last season. He made 2 starts and played 155 snaps at left guard. He only allowed a 2.6% pressure rate, which was 5th among guards with 100-plus snaps, but he was a liability in the run game. He ranked 61st in the run blocking grade. So Barch has not started more than 5 games in a year since 2021. He only played 65 snaps last year before he got hurt. Burford started 29 games for the Niners in his first 2 seasons, but then got pushed down the depth chart last year. He played 81 snaps at left guard. In his previous stint as a starter, though, he ranked 66th among guards in grade, overall grade, according to PFF. So, I mean, Jake Brendel is signed for the next 2 seasons, which doesn't make anybody feel good. Dom Pooney is a gem, no question at right guard. He's the strength. He played all 17 games. He took all but 1 snap at right guard for the year. He ended his rookie season 6th among all guards in the league in overall grade, according to PFF. But, I mean, they don't have a lot of guys signed long-term here. They need depth. Only Trent Williams, Jake Brendel, and Dom Pooney are the only offensive linemen that the 49ers have on their roster who are signed beyond this year. So they need some numbers here. They need a couple guys here. They probably need 3 offensive linemen. They need somebody. If you said, what exactly do the Niners need at offensive line in this draft? They need a starter at left guard. They need a future starting offensive tackle. And preferably, if that future starting offensive tackle or future left tackle could also be a swing tackle, that would be a good option as well. They could probably use a day 3 offensive lineman as a depth piece if there's one that they really like. Now, the guy that I think they love is Miles Frazier. They've worked him out from LSU. He's played both guard spots, both tackle spots. He's 6'5", 3 1/4. He's pretty good, versatile offensive line prospect. The guy that I love in this draft is Tyler Booker. I don't know that he fits the Niners scheme, but man, the Niners could not run the ball inside the 5, and this guy would alleviate that issue. I mean, he is a power blocker, road grader. I think he's going to be one of the great guards in football for the next 15 years. That's the guy I'd somehow wind up with in this first round or early in the second round. I love Tyler Booker. To me, that's a difference maker. Close behind him would be Donovan Jackson from Ohio State, who played guard and tackle this year. I'm also a huge fan of Willie Lampkin, who's more of a specialty guard center, probably a mid-day 3 pick. I also like Miles Hinton quite a bit. I mean, there's some decent Caleb Etienne. There's some decent day 3 tackle, developmental tackle options in the draft that are pretty intriguing. So the offensive line, they got to get, I would say, 2 or 3 players. Okay, that's a major need. You need a starter at left guard. You need a future starting tackle. You need somebody who can man your swing tackle spot this year, and you need an interior player that you feel good about down the road. So you need 3 players on the offensive line. Let's flip the card and jump to the defense. On the defensive tackle spot, man, it's barren. Your starters right now are Jordan Elliott and Evan Anderson. Your backups are Kevin Givens and Kalia Davis. The Niners allowed 4.3 yards per carry to running backs in 2024, but the underlying numbers were far worse. They finished 29th in explosive run rate allowed to running backs, 24th in negative runs forced to running backs, and 29th in rushing touchdowns allowed to the position. So they really struggled. The defensive tackle position really struggled this year. Malik Collins was let go. Javon Hargrave was let go. They've moved on. The Niners' number one tackle right now, defensive tackle, and they used to have Armstead and Buckner, and now their number one tackle is Jordan Elliott. He played more than 50% of the defensive snaps just once in his career. And now he's being asked to be the anchor point for the Niners defensive tackle spot. So this defensive line badly needs help. They need two new starting defensive tackles. They need two defensive ends, and they need one interior pass rusher who could play defensive tackle or defensive end. So they literally need 5 guys on their defensive front. Kevin Givens got some pressure from the inside last year in limited snaps. He had a 10.7% pressure rate, 3.5 sacks, but he's a rotational player. Kalia Davis can't stay healthy. They're barren. I mean, they're really, really naked at defensive tackle, and they need help badly. Defensive end, it's not a whole lot better. The Niners have 3 defensive ends, and they need 5 or 6. They have Bosa, Yatir Gross-Matos, and Sam Aquinu. This is one of the biggest needs on the roster. The other defensive ends are Alex Barrett, practice squad guy, Robert Beal, bust to this point, big, strong, fast, can't play. Drake Jackson, who's coming off a significant knee injury and may never play again. Jonathan Garvin, who's just a guy who floats around. And then they do have one kind of viable young guy in Teron Jackson, who I kind of like. But, man, the Niners need help, and big-time help right here if they're going to be a playoff team or a Super Bowl team. They finished 22nd in pressure rate, 32.9%. They logged 37 sacks last year. That was 23rd in the NFL. This team has Nick Bosa. You had Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave, and you had 37 sacks, 23rd in the NFL. Now, as far as Bosa, he had 9 sacks in 14 games. That's something of a step back. But he did rank 4th among all qualifying pass rushers with a 17.2% pressure rate. So Leonard Floyd has been moved on. Yatir Gross-Matos is still here, but, man, he had a 10.6 pressure rate in 11 games last season. That was his career best, and that's not a great number. He had 4 sacks overall. So, I mean, the Niners have to get Bosa, a healthy year out of Bosa, Yatir Gross-Matos and Sam Aquinu, and Teron Jackson all have to play ball for you. And then you got to find some guys. You got to find some defensive ends. I mean, there's no question. The Niners need 2 or 3 players at this position. If you went for 5 or 6 defensive linemen in this draft, I don't think it would be too many. Give me 2 defensive ends, 2 defensive tackles, and 2 pass rushers who can play either. That's what I think they need. All right, let's move to linebacker. The Niners' need at linebacker is significant. They used to have the best linebacking core in football. They had Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Azeez Al-Shaair. They had depth. They had talent. It's all gone. It's all gone. Greenlaw moved on to the Broncos in free agency. Azeez Al-Shaair moved on in the previous season. Greenlaw didn't play much this last year, but losing him is still going to hurt dramatically. He's one of the biggest leaders on the team. Fred Warner's still Fred Warner, but he's getting beat up. He was 16th among all qualified linebackers in yards allowed per coverage snap. He continued to be really strong against the run. They went for Devondre Campbell. That was a tire fire. That was a disaster. 2023 6th-round pick D. Winters was second among the returning linebackers in snaps, and they're hoping that Winters can play a more significant role this year. He was 5th among all qualified linebackers in yards per target allowed. But you got to wonder about the health. Can he stay healthy? How big of a player is he against the run? Can he do it? He's been playing in a part-time role. Can he play in a full-time role? They badly need a couple linebackers. And it's a great linebacker draft. They did sign Luke Gifford, who's a core special teamer. Some people think he can play from scrimmage. I'm not one of them. So, you have Gifford, and, you have, obviously, Winters, and you have Warner. You also have a couple young guys in Jalen Graham and Tatum Bethune who might be able to play off the bench. You got a couple special teamers outside of Gifford and Curtis Robinson and Deshaun White. But they need 2 or 3 linebackers who have starting potential in the future. And the beautiful part about this draft, it's an awesome draft for day 3 linebackers. So draft 2 or 3 of them on the final day of the draft, or sign a couple guys after the draft. But the Niners have to get, I would say, 2 or 3 linebackers out of this draft. All right, let's move to corner. What do you got at corner? You got Renardo Green, you got Demo Lenore, and then you got a bunch of question marks. Trey Brown was signed, but he's small and he's not been healthy. Darrell Luter Jr. is a big, rangy draft choice, but he hasn't fulfilled his potential. And then you have special teamers: Saran Neal, Chase Lucas, Trey Avery, Trey Tomlinson. The Niners have to have at least 2 corners, including 1 outside starter. You need an outside starter next to Renardo Green. Lenore is going to play the slot. I think Brown and Luter and Tomlinson are not bad for backups, but if they have to start, you're really hurting. The Niners only allowed 6.7 yards per attempt last year, which was 4th in the NFL, but the advanced numbers suggest they were more middle of the pack. They lost Mooney Ward. He left. They lost Isaac Yiadom. They lost Rock Ya-Sin. Yiadom played 486 snaps, so that hurts. Mooney is a good player, so they're going to have to replace a really good player there. Now, Renardo Green and Demo Lenore are back, and, it'll be interesting to see what Robert Saleh's wrinkle on the secondary looks like. Green was awesome last year. He was a second-round pick. He was on the field for 82% of the defensive snaps from week 6 on, and he allowed a solid 6.7 yards per target in pass coverage. Lenore is awesome. He allowed 6.1 yards per target last season and a 72.6 quarterback rating. He's a tremendous player. The Niners did add 3 corners. I mean, they added Trey Brown, who's probably the front runner today for the number 3 cornerback job, but he's small and he's been hurt. And they added Trey Tomlinson and they added Saran Neal, but none of those guys, Brown, Neal, Tomlinson, I don't know any of them. Tomlinson's probably the best talent. Brown's got the most experience. I don't know that any of them are really starting caliber corners. So they need a corner. I would say they probably need 2 corners. And 1 who could start immediately outside. And if they decided they wanted to go corner, early, they could potentially go corner in the first round. I could see Jedi Barron coming to them in the cornerback market. I think that is potentially, that could potentially happen. So, and then the safety market, I personally, I just think that the 49ers are pretty good at safety. I don't really see a big need at the safety spot for the Niners. I really don't. I think, if you look at what they have safety-wise, they've got enough at safety to cover. You got Jair Brown is a good player. Malik Mustafa is a good player. They added Pinnock. They added Richie Grant. I think with the signings of Pinnock and Grant and the improvement of Jair Brown, Jair Brown ranked 11th in yards per coverage snap, 10th in yards per target. I know there was some regression there, but him and Malik Mustafa, I think, are real bright spots. And I like Richie Grant, and I like Pinnock. Pinnock was good at Pittsburgh. He's an aggressive player who's got experience playing the corner. I think he's a decent coverage player at safety. And then Richie Grant. I think Richie Grant's a good player. I liked him in college. He kind of fell out of favor in Atlanta this last year, but he's not old. He's not beat up. I think he's going to contribute. So I think the need at safety really isn't there. And, of course, the other need is at kicker. They're going to need a kicker. And they've talked about signing a veteran kicker. I'm thinking maybe Nick Folk. That would be a good name. They need a veteran kicker to compete with Jake Moody for the starting kicker spot. So there you go. There is the 49ers draft picture in a nutshell, according to Warren Sharp. I think if you go through this thing, what you'll find is that, man, Brock Purdy was pretty damn good this year. They need to find themselves probably a backup quarterback. They've got to find themselves at least a couple of running backs because they've used 4 running backs almost every year. So they got to have at least 2 running backs. I think you probably want to have a day 3 tight end. I think you're definitely looking for a receiver who can do things. The offensive line is going to be interesting because how many picks do they, or how many players do they try to invest in, and where in the draft do they invest in them? I love the idea of Tyler Booker, but he would have to be a day 1 or day 2 investment. And he's a dominant left guard. Why do I love Tyler Booker? Because you just lost Aaron Banks. He's your starting left guard. Tyler Booker started at left guard for Alabama. I see Alabama players every year. They always have highly rated guys. This guy is different. This guy is special. I think this guy is going to be the best guard in football. I think he's going to be really, really good. Quentin Nelson right now is the best guard in football, but I think Tyler Booker has potential to be a road grading, dominant guard and could be, a Hall of Famer. I think he's that big, that strong, that dominant, that powerful. I love him. Absolutely love him. And I don't love the Bama players that often, but this guy is just so overwhelming. And when you watch his workout numbers were pedestrian. Why? Because he's not a workout guy. He's an offensive lineman. He's a football player. But he's 6'5", 33, I think 34-inch arms, really, really explosive and really, really powerful. And if you had Booker at left guard and Pooney at right guard, I think that's the foundation for your line for the next 15 years. And there's real value in having that solidified. So I really love Tyler Booker. But if they don't want to go early for an offensive lineman, then look for guys like Miles Frazier, Willie Lampkin, Miles Hinton, Caleb Etienne, Carson Vincent on day 3. They could go day 3. They could go day 1. That's the offensive line, I think, is the big question because they could go O-line early. They could go O-line late. The defensive line needs help badly. So they're going to have to go defensive line early and often. 2 D tackles, 2 DNs, and probably 2 more players that can either be inside or outside. You need 5 or 6 new players there. You need a couple of linebackers. You need a couple of corners. You're pretty good at safety, but, man, the defensive front, the linebacking core, the cornerbacks, the running backs, the offensive line. I mean, this team has lots and lots and lots of needs. Great breakdown by Warren Sharp. I would encourage all of you guys to follow him on X and read his breakdown on the 49ers. I think he did an amazing job. But his primary takeaway in this Warren Sharp article is that for those of you going, the Niners weren't very good this last year. Brock Purdy sucks. Brock Purdy sucks. Check yourself. This guy in his 3rd NFL season, in a down year with tons of injuries, when things were a nightmare, nothing went well. 3rd in yards per attempt, 4th in success rate, 5th in EPA per attempt. Despite having the 2nd most injured offense, despite playing with his weapons for 57 total snaps on the year, the Niners had a bad year, but it wasn't Brock Purdy. It wasn't Brock Purdy. Now, Brock wasn't great, and he definitely had too many turnovers. Definitely needs to eradicate that part of his game. But Brock's not the problem. The problem is the 49ers offensive line, defensive front 7. Their roster has started to erode, and it's time to inject all kinds of youth and talent. And if they're able to, they're going to contend for Super Bowls. And if they swing and miss, they won't. All right. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to LearnKey's Upskill Academy for sponsoring this video. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.